Thank you for joining us this evening for the November 2nd, 2021 Monte Sereno City Council regular meeting. Before this meeting is called to order, I would like to point out a few house rules to assist council members, staff, and members of the public to successfully participate in this meeting. Council members, your microphone is live, so please keep your microphones on mute until you wish to speak. For tonight's meeting, we are using Zoom to host the City Council regular meeting. At the bottom of the Zoom client, there are two icons, chat and raise hand. Please use chat only to report technical issues such as being unable to hear a council member speaking. Please use raise hand to be recognized by the mayor and enabled to speak to the council. To comment under oral communication or on any agenda item, you're allowed 3 minutes to speak per agenda item. Emails limited to 350 words can also be submitted to the city clerk and it will be read into the record. This word limit is set to adhere to the typical 3-minute time allowance. Only attendees using the Zoom application can use the raise hand function option to comment. Participants calling in from the telephone will only be able to listen and cannot provide feedback or public comment. Lastly, because we're all not in the same room, all votes at this meeting will be taken by roll call.
Thank you very much. I hereby call to order the meeting of the Monte Sereno City Council for Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Mekachek.
Present.
Councilmember Lawler.
Present.
Councilmember Turner.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Elahi.
Here.
And Mayor Luthold.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Ms. Radcliffe or Mr. Leonardis, any changes to the orders of the day?
No changes for me.
None for me.
Thank you very much. Okay, we will begin with our presentation tonight from the Los Gatos Monte Sereno Police Department for their 6-month service report, if they are available and can be promoted to give us that presentation. After the police report, we will then open the regular oral communications to the public and proceed with the normal calendar. So, Mr. Leonardis, did you want to introduce and recognize the police folks? And we've got
Thank you, Mayor.
We've got a question about who the speaker is, and I'm not sure if they've been promoted yet.
That is correct. I cannot see who we have on the line with us this evening so far.
It is Interim Chief Tata is on the line with us.
All right. Thank you. Pleased to have Interim Police Chief Clint Tata present our semi-annual report this evening. Welcome, Interim Chief Tata.
Thank you very much. Oops.
There you are. We can see your hand up and we can see it looks like you've been promoted to panelist.
Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. We can't see you yet.
Okay, there I am.
There we go.
Right.
Much better.
Thank you very much, City Manager Leonardis, Mayor and City Council, Clinton Tata, Interim Police Chief, Los Gatos Monte Sereno Police Department. Thank you for this opportunity to allow me to speak to you in regards to our police services report for the city of Monte Sereno from January of 2021 to June of 2021. So I think my presentation, do you have that, Michelle, up?
Yeah, give me 1 second. I'll get that for you.
All right. If you can just control the slides for me on when I call them out, that'd be great.
I apologize for the delay. Give me 1 second.
No worries.
I'm sorry. We're having technical difficulties at the moment.
Okay, do you want, should I try to share my screen if I pull?
If you can share it, that'd be great.
Um, see if I can find it here. Everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll move forward. So let's see here. Okay, so thank you very much, Clinton Tata, Interim Police Chief for the Los Gatos Monte Sereno Police Department. I just wanted to cover several different things in addition to some of the actual statistics that we normally report out on every 6 months. Over the last 6 months, the police department is working very diligently and hard to really address the mental health and police reform calls to action that have been brought forward by the community. So some of the things the police department has moved forward on and progressed on with some of the programs that we have currently implemented is a therapy canine program. And what this really has done for us is that we've implemented 2 therapy police canine dogs into the police department, primarily used for several different options to serve both the public and our internal officers and staff internally. We have integrated the police dogs as part of the mobile crisis response team mental health follow-up in the county of Santa Clara. So as we do conduct those follow-up visits for mental health visits for some of our clientele in our communities, we will obviously deploy the police therapy canine dog as well. In addition, these dogs serve as part of a collateral duty assignments. They are assigned to police officers and a civilian police staff member, and they will also serve on some of our collateral duty assignment teams, such as the Victim Services Unit, peer support team, and really assist us in dealing with those traumatic incidents and really helping us with victims of crimes when it comes to interviews of domestic violence victims or victims of sexual assault. In addition, we've also implemented a vulnerable communities response team, which is a new name that we've kind of revamped, which also includes and encompasses our homeless liaison officer position, with a real focus on working and keeping statistical measures and references and resources with our mobile crisis response team for the Santa Clara County. So this team primarily focuses on our mental health calls for service. They received crisis intervention team training. We are looking at enhanced crisis intervention team training that these specific officers can attend and really be that liaison between our police department and the county's behavioral health, mental health services to really allow us an opportunity to provide services to those that are suffering from mental health in our community. In addition, we have implemented 2 community service officer intern positions. These non-sworn civilian positions are unarmed. They respond to low-level calls for service that usually do not entail any sorts of powers of arrest or any sort of suspect information, but are really that opportunity for us to engage with the public with a police presence from a police department member, but in a non-enforceable and non-intimidating fashion. The department has allocated through grant funding a use of force de-escalation virtual reality simulator technology machine. and that was through a state California Peace Officers and Standards Training Grant. The department was able to allocate that piece of equipment, and we have integrated that into our mental health and police reform strategies, and have come up and developed some mental health scenarios. So we're really focused on providing training to our officers in every possible way we can so that they can deal with these situations appropriately. Last council meeting in the town of Los Gatos, the police department had moved forward and signing an agreement of contractual ambulance services, private ambulance service agreement for the transportation of juvenile 5150 mental health holds. And so this really allows us as a police department an opportunity to provide transport services for those juveniles that are suffering from mental health or crisis incidents to a rehabilitation center, which is usually Uplift Family Services, or in some cases, emergency psychiatric services at a local hospital, without the use of putting them in police handcuffs and placing them in the back of a police vehicle. So we are trying to find alternative ways to engage and provide these services to the public without utilizing traditional police resources as we normally would. And again, we are continuing our partnership with the Mobile Crisis Response Team, as we have in the past, and Uplift Family Services, really looking at strategic ways that we as a small community of both Los Gatos and Monte Sereno can implement strategic measures to addressing the mental health issues that are going on in our communities, as well as providing and making sure that our officers are well trained to the best of their abilities. Excuse me. Okay, the next slide here is a slide of Monte Sereno police activity and incidents from January 2021 to June of 2021. Let's see if I can move this frame. What you'll see here on the chart is, in the red are the calls for service, in the blue are the proactive incidents that are generated by the officers for those months in the city of Monte Sereno. In the box to the right are the average response times for priority calls, given the time frame of the last 6 months from January to June. Priority 1 calls are calls for service that include emergency priority response, which usually entails lights and sirens. And an immediate response. Priority 2 calls are some calls that are related to property crimes that could be calls in progress. And then other crimes, obviously, that are priority 3 calls are low-level crimes or reports to police. UCR stats. The city of Monte Sereno, obviously, we don't get very much crime in the city of Monte Sereno, but we definitely track the Uniform Crime Report statistics. You'll see here, I did report out the last time, I think, when I believe I provided the report, we did include and talk about some of the burglaries that are occurring at the beginning of January and February of last year that we were starting to see an increase in. And that was a kind of a peak time for us, both in Los Gatos and in the city of Monte Sereno as well. These are crime statistics that we have to report to the FBI. What I would tell all of you and the general public is that the Uniform Crime Reporting statistical measures are changing. And those are going to have changed since October 1st of 2021. And those UCR statistics will no longer be applicable and reported to the FBI. The new system is going to be called NIBRS and CYBRS, which is the California Incident Based Reporting System. And that's something the FBI has realigned with their new statistical measures for statistical reporting by all law enforcement agencies in the state of California. The next slide here are some slides that I placed in with some charts and graphs to kind of show some of the trends. Last council meeting I was at for the city of Monte Sereno, there was some requests by the council to provide some comparison statistics, including both Los Gatos and the city of Monte Sereno in those total numbers. Just so that everybody can see what's going on in the geographical area of both cities. So what you'll see on the left box is kind of the trending graph there of what's transpired between 2017 and 2021 for the months of January through June in both Los Gatos and Monte Sereno for the residential burglaries. And that's what's been reported to us by month. You'll see the green line there on the left is the year 2021. Obviously, those are the 2 months that we were hit pretty hard, was January and February this last year, which was really an anomaly for what we have seen in other years, as you'll see there on the graph for those first few months in the year. The second graph on the right is the thefts that include all thefts and larcenies as defined by the Uniform Crime Report. These are crimes that are committed. Obviously, we look at these as crimes of opportunity, where there are unlocked vehicles or just a theft without any breaking and entering into a property or breaking and entering into a vehicle. It's usually left unlocked, unattended. And these are just stolen items that are from both residences, vehicles, and commercial businesses as well. The next two charts you'll see here are reported stolen vehicles for the same time frames for the course of a four-year period, as well as the assaults on the right-hand side there on the graph on the right. I think what we have seen in law enforcement is in 2021, there was a pretty significant spike in persons crimes, which are physical assaults, and different aggravated and simple assaults occurred. And that's pretty denoted there in the green line on the right-hand side between the months of January and June. In addition, we had a pretty significant amount of stolen vehicles in the early part of 2021. In 2020, we also experienced quite a few stolen vehicles toward the beginning and end part of June area. Some of the notable cases for the first 6 months of Monte Sereno. We did have 2 residential burglaries on Viewfield Road and 1 residential burglary on Vineland Road. All 3 of them, or I'm sorry, 2 of the 3 were rear glass shatters. These are things that we often talk about in the neighborhood watch meetings as kind of the modus operandi of how people commit these crimes. And what we have seen a trend on is these suspects go through the side gates, they go in the backyard, they find a rear glass window or slider, they break that, they make entry, and then they ransack the residence, primarily looking for jewelry and other valuables. One of the cases, approximately 3 hours after one of the burglaries, we also received information from the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office in Saratoga, had a similar incident right about the same time frame that we did in Monte Sereno. We put together a hasty plan and we ended up identifying a vehicle that had fled from the scene of the Saratoga incident, which then led law enforcement into a vehicle pursuit. This pursuit traveled onto Highway 17 and was shortly apprehended by Highway Patrol. And Highway Patrol used their helicopter as well. And during that pursuit, the suspect was disposing some of the stolen property out of the vehicle onto the freeway, one of which was a firearm. The other items were jewelry items, which were all recovered by our department. and were later returned to the property owner. So we ended up getting a lot of property returned to the owner on this case, as well as taking somebody into custody on this specific crime. In March of 2021, we had a interrupted residential burglary of a residence under construction. This was a suspect that was posing as a contractor when the homeowner was on site in a rear part of the residence and confronted the suspect who was posing as a contractor, made an identification of who the suspect was based on license plate of the vehicle, tying that to a DMV photograph of what the person looked like. We did a photo lineup of the suspect, and the victim was able to pick out and identify who the suspect was. Detectives followed up on the case, ended up looking for the suspect, and later issued an arrest warrant for his arrest. What we determined was this suspect was out on bail on several different burglary cases already prior to this attempted burglary that he was attempting to commit in Monte Sereno. And once we apprehended him, what we discovered was he had 9 other active cases that he was pending court appearances on. Reported vehicle collisions in Monte Sereno. We've had a few since this report, since the date, but during the time frame of January to June, we had 2 significant injury or minor injury collision accidents in the city of Monte Sereno. One was Greenwood at Highway 9. Primary collision factor on that collision was unsafe speed, and that was determined through an investigation. And then we also had a vehicle versus a bicycle collision at Highway 9 at Austin Way. As a vehicle attempting to make a left turn from Austin, or from Highway 9 onto Austin, and failed to yield the right of way to a bicyclist that was traveling eastbound. So what you'll see there on the right is kind of a pie chart of the primary collision factors violations that we tend to see as a trend here in both Los Gatos and Monte Sereno for most of our reported vehicle collisions. Unsafe speed, 30% of the collisions that get reported make up that primary collision factor. Unsafe turning movements is about 16%, and right-of-way violations are about 5%. There's other violations that can make up the rest of that 100% pie, which I don't have all those vehicle code violations listed. So one of the things I just wanted to kind of catch the council up with, as well as the community, is in May and June of last year, we held a community meetings, and we went to Los Gatos Town Council and proposed a crime deterrent tool that we believed was very effective, and something that we were looking to implement as a pilot program in the town of Los Gatos and city of Monte Sereno. This is the Flock AOPR, Automated License Plate Reader System. What I can tell you is we've deployed this and started installing cameras September 1st. Not all of the cameras have been installed at this point. We have allocated 15 total cameras and identified 15 various locations throughout town along the perimeter ingress and egress points of the city of Monte Sereno, as well as the town of Los Gatos. What I can tell you is that this system has been phenomenal in deterring crime and helping law enforcement solve crime. In the first week, we were averaging roughly 1 to 2 felony vehicle want hits per day. These are stolen vehicles wanted or associated to a crime. And we obviously made several arrests in the first couple of weeks as a result of this system that was implemented. One in particular case that I would like to kind of highlight is we received a flock notification hit off of the Highway 9 at Highway 17 off-ramp. We have a camera located there. Vehicle is traveling westbound towards the city of Monte Sereno. It hit off the camera. It came back to a vehicle that was wanted in a high-end commercial series burglary thieves that were wanted throughout the Bay Area, all the way from the city of Antioch, as far down Oakland, all the way through the East Bay, down through the South Bay of Santa Clara County. This vehicle has been wanted for some time, and a lot of law enforcement have been looking for this vehicle. It ended up coming through Los Gatos late one night, about 1 o'clock in the morning. And we were pretty confident that they were likely going to hit one of the wine businesses on North Santa Cruz. They were parked behind one of the businesses when they were contacted by our officers about 1 in the morning, at which time the suspects were apprehended for outstanding warrants they had for their arrest, as well as the vehicle that was wanted in the system. So that was a great arrest that we made, and kind of the beginning of what we tend to see this system doing for us from both the crime deterrent and preventative measure, and helping us really solve cases when we don't have all the resources available to watch over every ingress and egress point throughout town at all times of the day. Some of the community outreach events over the last 6 months that we just enjoy being a part of. Obviously, one of the highlights of my careers has always been the City of Monte Sereno picnics. It's a very unique opportunity for us to get out there as law enforcement officers and staff and integrate with town and city residents from the City of Monte Sereno. I've been here for 21 years in Los Gatos, and Los Gatos has never really had a picnic like this. And so I really look forward to the one in Monte Sereno. It's very intimate. You can have great, real conversations with the community, staff and council members, and it's a great opportunity for us to share with them our job, some of our tools, some of our toys, and just provide an overall great experience of interaction. In addition, we have several other programs that the department is continuing to move forward with and engage in the community with. Obviously, we had the 9/11 memorial events. We have several swearing-ins with new officers and veteran officers getting promoted in the last 6 months. We are looking forward to hosting our first live Citizens Police Academy. We were all set, ready to go in 2020, and COVID hit. And so we are looking forward either at the end of 2021 or looking at the beginning of 2022 to host that 4 to 5 month Citizens Police Academy for our public. And then finally, one last thing is we have made some improvements and added some things to our police webpage. One of the things that the town Los Gatos Council requested and really wanted to understand was some of the data transparency, which included not just crime data, but really looking at stop data, hate crime incidents, mental health incidents, some of the training and use of force as a part of the police reform calls to action. In addition to that, some of the California Public Records Act requests that the department has been requested to release. So we do have a page on our website that's called the Police Transparency and Data page. It does have some information on there in regards to hate crime incidents, mental health incidents, and then it obviously has resources for both those specific crime types, and the mental health has mental health resources as well. We have published our use of force training and some of the things that our officers go through so that the public has a full understanding of what officers and what kind of training officers attend and have to endure. Our stop data, we are required by the state of California to start collecting, which is the Racial Identity Profiling Act, the RIPA data, and that's been begun since October 1st. and which time in January of 2022, the police department will be reporting that data to the Department of Justice. That information, the stop data, will probably likely not be available for public release until probably the end of 2022. Between January and December of 2022, it's all kind of a test phase for the state for us to collect the data, report it to the DOJ, and the DOJ to then fine tune the data and then publish and make that data accessible to the public. We have included a crimegraphics.com, lgpdcrimegraphics.com. This is kind of like the old crimereports.com for just really call type and crime mapping to see what's going on in your community for both Los Gatos and the city of Monte Sereno. This gives our citizens and community members an opportunity to go utilize date parameters, select call types that they want to see on a pin map in their neighborhood to see what kind of activity has been occurring in their neighborhood. And then obviously, finally, the last thing is very much promoting the Neighborhood Watch program. It's something that we see a lot of success with. We have a lot of engagement from various communities in Los Gatos. We have several in the city of Monte Sereno as well. One of which was the really the catalyst for us pushing the flock safety automated license plate readers. So we're really hats off to that group in the Greenwood neighborhood. But we have also published our Neighborhood Watch newsletters to our Neighborhood Watch groups. And we send those out quarterly, providing some statistical measures, kind of some trends that are occurring, and then just really some advertisements of some of the programs and things that the police department is actively pursuing over the course of the next, over that quarter. With that, I'm available for any questions that the council may have or any members of the public. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Tata. Well, I'm going to jump in because I know that there's a couple of things I want to follow up on that will probably be things other people have as well. One is if you could speak briefly to the flock cameras and the privacy question that people have about those. Could you tell us a little bit about the cameras and privacy and how that's handled?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So thank you for the question. Yes, so that question did come up in the community forum. It is something that we have addressed. It's something that flock safety addresses from at a company level. There are two primary concerns that we found when it came down to privacy and automated license plate reader. One is the data and the retention, which Flock, when doing our research of that portion of the concern, we had contacted the ACLU as well as the Electronic Frontier Foundation, really two groups that have concern with the privacy concerns that citizens may have in regards to the retention and data confidentiality of that. One of the things that they recommended was the retention policies for a lot of the departments, and a lot of the license plate readers were just too lengthy. And the data was collected, it was stored, it was held for too much time. Flock addresses that point and really meets or beats the standards and recommendations of both those groups that had those concerns, which has a 30-day retention policy. If the data is not utilized or queried within 30 days, that data gets erased, it's gone, it's no longer there, it's non-accessible to law enforcement, and we don't have the ability to go back and retrieve any data after 30 days. Therefore, it's incumbent on us as law enforcement to act quickly when we're investigating crimes. We do keep a audit log every 30 days. We keep an audit log and download all the queries that any officer have ever searched. These are all user-based, accessible based on single user password. And so the department has the ability to track who accesses the system, who looks up to see which license plate was captured, and what for. And the parameters in order to search are very similar to the ability for us to have to run license plate through the CLETS law enforcement system or DMV records. There's a need to know, right to know basis, and it requires us to put a case number into that query as a part of, that extra layer of auditing purposes. So we really take the auditing purposes seriously, the confidentiality of it all. The system does not take streaming video of any of the vehicles. It takes still shot photos of the license plate and the rear part of the vehicle. That information is run against the California Department of Motor Vehicles database for the stolen vehicle system. So if there's a vehicle that's been reported stolen and entered by DMV as stolen or that law enforcement agency, it'll run against that and any wants or warrants on those vehicles only. It does not run a license plate and provide a name or an address or the who the registered owner is of the vehicle at all. That requires a second search form, much like it would be if law enforcement officers were handed a piece of paper saying from a citizen saying, here's a license plate that I saw in my neighborhood, here's a license plate number. A law enforcement officer would have to run a separate search through the DMV system to run that license plate and get that personal information needed. But that's on a need to know, right to know basis.
Great, and this isn't available for people, lawyers and jilted husbands to query. It's not stored in any way that the public can access the information. Is that right?
No, not at all. So it would be, the only thing that is accessible to the public is the public does have the ability to purchase flock ALPR cameras, but they would have no use to be able to identify or translate a license plate number to who the person that vehicle belongs to. Really what they would be investing in is a license plate camera to capture plates. It would be no different than standing on the corner of a sidewalk, taking digital photographs of every license plate and then turning that information over to law enforcement or whatnot in relation to a crime.
Okay, thank you. A couple other questions while I've got the floor a little bit here. I looked on the statistics, the UCR crime statistics, looks like things as we went into May and June, a lot of the crime had hit kind of normal levels or even a little lower than normal on a lot of the statistics. Number one, can you share those statistical charts either on your website or ours so that it's available to the community so people can see that things are much more under control than they were in January? And then a second part with that same information, can you preview for us a little bit what's been going on since June? Are things staying pretty normalized? Are we seeing an uptick that you're having to address? How are things going as we come forward?
Yeah, no, it's been kind of a whirlwind. I think what we are seeing pretty consistently from not just an uptick, but a consistent, what we're seeing a lot of is hate in communities. There's a lot of attention around hate crime. And so we're seeing a lot of incivility in the community, both in Los Gatos, and all over throughout the California. And so we're starting to see a lot more of those types of incidents get reported than what usually traditionally has been reported in the past. We think it's very unfortunate, obviously. And so I would venture to guess that our assaults, simple assaults, and some of those other things are going to be still at a level that's above the previous 4 years. But some of the other property crimes have really leveled out, as you saw that it was doing over the last, couple months before the beginning of June into July, August. It's probably leveled back out to what normal levels are from previous years.
Great. And then one more question. How is staffing going at the officer level? And can you address briefly what's happening with the dispatchers?
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. So, yes, the department is in a lot of transition. We are in search of a new police chief. So there is a nationwide search occurring as we speak. The department has several vacancies at the officer position. I think we're currently at 2 vacancies right now. We have several officers that are out on long-term injury. We have 3 upcoming retirements in the end of December. So the department is actively recruiting officers. We do have 1 officer that's in the police academy that will graduate in December. We just hired 2 officers that are in the field training program, and we just had 2 officers get off of the field training program and are out solo on their own. So it's about playing catch up and trying to get ahead of the 8 ball then versus playing catch up all the time. And so it's really about forecasting and looking ahead to see when those upcoming retirements are and pre-planning. For the general public and for council's education, it takes about a year. When you have somebody brand new that wants to get into law enforcement, in order for them to be a solo beat officer on patrol, it takes about a year of training. So it's a 6-month process to go through the police academy. After that, it's about a 5-month field training process. Once they graduate, they ride around with a field training officer, and then at that point, they are released on their own and can operate in a solo capacity. So it's about looking ahead and pre-planning. I think we are doing a good job trying to manage that right now. Currently, we are already looking at placing 2 candidates into a January academy that we are in the hiring process with right now. And then we're already forecasting for hiring for officers for the May academy in 2022. Also anticipating who could potentially retire after the first of the year and kind of the timing on what that looks like. In the dispatch situation, yes, we've had a significant decrease in the number of dispatchers that we had. At one time, we were operating at 3 of the 8 total dispatchers. We currently have 5 full-time dispatchers right now. We have 2 of those 5 are still in training mode. 1 is getting scheduled to be released. So they will have 4 full-time operational dispatchers with a 5th dispatcher that is still in the training program. And then we have 2 more dispatchers starting the training program very shortly here in the next 2 months. So it's, again, there's a lot of variables as we move forward. I think what we are finding just traditionally in law enforcement is it's tough to find qualified applicants, number 1. And I think on a regional level throughout the Bay Area, there's not an agency in this county that isn't going after the same candidates. And so it's a competition amongst all agencies, and a lot of the other agencies in our county are facing the same deficits that our department is as well with staffing.
Great, thank you. I'll let some of the other questions come in. Mayor Pro Tem Alani.
Thank you. Thank you, Acting Chief Tata. I think it was a great presentation, and I think congratulations are in order for you guys. I mean, you've gone through a lot of turmoil within the police department, and you've got to go through a lot of changes with this new outlook of what people expect from the police force. And it sounds like you've done a good job. I mean, I looked at your website, and it looks good. So keep it up, and wish you the best on that. There's a couple of things you pointed out. I mean, obviously people like the police force when they come in and solve crimes. The goal is to prevent crime, and with this flock cameras, maybe you can do some of that. So that's very helpful. And obviously, as long as you recognize and respect the privacy rights that will come up and are obviously very, very important to us. So I'm glad you guys are getting into that. And I assume you said you were going to be installing more cameras. So let me just ask you a couple of questions and you can address them all. One is how long is it going to take to install all of those, and what's preventing their immediate installation? The second question I had is your report pointed out there's a couple of places where there were accidents because the one of the reasons are because people can't make turns when they're not supposed to make turns. And I was wondering if that would be those would be appropriate places to install mirrors or some other things. The other big issue you were looking at is speeding. And I don't know if there are places where we can put some bumps in to slow people down, if that would make a difference. So if you can address those issues, that would be helpful. You're addressing all the other queries that are coming up with respect to mental health and everything else. That's great. Keep those up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lahi. That's, I think I wrote down most of it. So if I forget one of them, please feel free to chime in and re-ask the question. Yes, the flock cameras, we hope they are not only just a preventative thing and a positive thing for us as a local police department in solving crime, but we also hope it's a deterrent and a preventative measure as well. And quite honestly, we hope that, you know, like any community, even the communities where we reside, we hope it's something that brings, you know, comfort and safety to the community and the residents. So we look forward to that. Some of the locations and some of the cameras that we have that have not been finalized and installed out. I had an email today from Flock that advised that they were getting ready to install the camera at Highway 9 at Quito, as well as the one at Pollard and Quito as well. So those are two locations I know for sure. There was one at Lark and Highway 17 that they needed to replace. But that is something that Flock is managing the installation on, and they are going to those different sites and posting those cameras up. And then as far as the traffic accidents are concerned, yes, we obviously, you know, the turning movements are some that, you know, some of them are obviously in areas that, you know, have visibility issues. You know, majority of it is, I think turning movement is the primary collision factor, but there's a high likelihood that there's a lot of inattentionness that's going on, whether it be distracted driving or whether it be other forms of inattentiveness by the driver themselves prior to making that turning movement, failing to yield the right of way, failing to, you know, or give enough time for that bicyclist to pass. So those are some of the things that we are kind of evaluating. Obviously, if there are areas that have speed factors that are consistent on a regular basis in residential streets, or there's, you know, vision obscurities in various areas for turning movements, those are things the department will obviously report back to engineering and your engineering department as well, and make those recommendations from a traffic safety and engineering standpoint. Just so that, you know, all these traffic and collision statistics get cross-reported to the engineering departments for both town, Los Gatos and Monte Sereno, so that they're well aware of kind of where these accidents are occurring and what are the primary collision factors. And then finally, probably I just wrote down the website, the mental health things. Yes, so I mean, for me, data transparency is, you know, this is the age we live in. And so there's no reason to hide data. The data is the data. And so the public has a right to know. They should know what's going on in their communities. We have the data. Obviously, we don't have all the data metrics of what people want. We will be more than happy to publish the data that we have available and continue to make that as transparent as we can be. As for the Flock privacy and audits that we will be implementing every 30 days, those audits will also be a part of our data transparency page on our website. Those are things that I'm committed to posting online. Obviously, the license plate number will be blacked out and redacted out, but the date, time, location, and reason for a query of what we queried and, you know, the reason for that related to an investigation or whatnot, that information on an Excel spreadsheet that's straight off the Flock cloud database system that we get access to will be part of our audit. And that's something that we're more than happy to post online so that the public can see kind of how frequent the data is getting queried, how much data is getting downloaded actually off the system by law enforcement, and how much information is actually being used as evidence of a crime.
Thank you. And I was wondering if you could add that data, these charts that you gave us for the number of incidents, number of burglaries, if you could also add how many arrests have been made or how many convictions have been held during that period of time, that might be helpful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for that. I went too fast over some of this stuff, but that crime graphics, if you type in lgpd.crimegraphics.com, that is the citizen portion or citizen facing portion of our CAD, computer aided dispatch system. So that is something that is fully accessible by the public. Not only does that provide the crime maps and the call incidents that we are responding to, or what kind of things that we're responding to, but if there's a section in there that has drop down tabs on the left-hand side on that web page, and it has media bulletins. If you click on the media bulletins, that is kind of like the daily watch log. It kind of gives you kind of a synopsis version of some of the released, like the police blotter, kind of to show what's going on. In addition to that, it also provides some of those data points that you were requesting there as well. So that's something that we use. There's an arrest log on there, as well as one of the drop downs. That's all public information that we are required and if asked to release. So our CAD system automatically for every arrest that we make publishes and puts it on that arrest log. If you go to that webpage, lgpd.crimegraphics.com, and click arrests, it'll show you everyone that we've arrested, unless it's related to some sort of confidential investigation. It'll show you all the information that is required under public record for us to release: the name, the person, the charges that they were booked upon, and the date and time.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lawler.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Chief Tata, for a great presentation. I'm always impressed with the department's rapid response times, so thank you. As well as I'm impressed with your efforts to evolve as a department. My question is regarding juvenile mental health, and I was wondering, my understanding is that there's really only one adolescent psych ward that serves the Bay Area, am I correct? And that's in Fremont. So the Uplift Family Services are filling that gap. Are you, and I know that what does exist is woefully inadequate. So are you finding ways to be able to take adolescents to get proper care?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. Obviously all mental health services is a challenge for us. At least it's frustrating for us to watch as law enforcement, having to deal with it. And obviously when we have to watch some of the same victims over and over again, having to struggle with this illness that we're having to help seek and find treatment for. Yes, Fremont Psychiatric Ward is probably one of the only ones in the Bay Area that does, at that level, at the Fremont Ward. Uplift Family Services does provide in-care treatment. They have beds available. That's located in the city of Campbell. That is our first default when we have a patient that's of a juvenile that's requiring some sort of psychiatric evaluation for the treatment. That's kind of that initial triage location where they end up going to first. And from there, it would then be kind of the next step would be Fremont or some sort of live-in facility for longer term care. But yes, Uplift is kind of our first and primary thing. Obviously, secondarily to that is, family preference. If parents have a preference based on insurance or doctor care or treatments of a specific local hospital that they have, attending physicians for that their child is seeking or already under care of, then we honor that as well. Our last resort option is Valley Medical Center, Emergency Psychiatric Services for Juveniles. We don't like to, number one, mix them into the adult population over there at that psychiatric facility, as well as we just don't believe that the care is adequate and tends to the juvenile needs at that level. So we obviously work very closely with Uplift Family Services. They have a mobile crisis stabilization unit at their facility that has therapists available 24/7. So it doesn't matter what time of day, we can always, but it's about getting them over to that location. So to alleviate us being the ones to transport them there, we've gone forward with the ambulance contract and partner with a private ambulance company, and we will call that ambulance company out. They will provide the transport on behalf of our department to that facility.
All right, thank you. I really hope that the county, I hope we can find more ways to expand our adolescent psych ward capacity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. I don't see any more hands up, and we've taken a lot of your time, Chief Tata. So thank you so much for serving the community and for keeping us informed.
All right. Thank you all very much. Have a great
Thank you.
night.
Thanks. Good night. Okay, we will turn now to the next part of our calendar. That is oral communications. For oral communications, this is a chance for members of the public to speak to council on matters which are not on the agenda tonight. If we have anyone in the public who is wishing to address an issue that's not on the calendar, please raise your hand to be recognized. Adesh Kumar. You'll have 3 minutes once we get you recognized. Okay, go ahead with your convenience. I think you're still muted. Adesh Kumar, you need to unmute yourself and then we will hear from you. There you are.
Okay, so I've been here on this street via Cerino for almost 40 years, 38 years precisely. And we've had several problems with cars, parking, odd times of the day, 5-6 days in a row, stolen vehicles just being dropped off here. And that it's become impossible for whether it's the pool guy or the gardener or anybody to come and service, leave alone our own guests. They don't have place to park. And I made this request 10 years back, and the matter was saying, okay, work it out with the neighbors. And nothing happened. I requested something in writing. The town would not give that. Now the problem has become really bad. And I am requesting that I've given plenty of picture evidence and all to the city manager. I'm requesting that the town consider some kind of traffic management.
Okay, did we lose Mr. Kumar? Looks like we may have lost him. And if he comes back and has more to say, we can recognize him to speak a little further. He's going to have some time left. Otherwise, he has expressed that he's given information to the city manager and he's now brought it to the attention of council. So we can follow up on that in due course. Any other members of the public wishing to speak to matters not on the calendar today? Seeing none, we will close oral communications for now unless Mr. Kumar returns. And we will move to written communications. Yeah, if Mr. Kumar comes back, we'll give him a moment to close out his comments at a convenient time. Okay, so written communications. Ms. Radcliffe, did we receive any written communications that had not made it into the agenda packet?
No, we have not.
All right.
The letter from Mr. Allen, was that not part of the written communication, or is that addressed somewhere else?
That's going to be addressed in council member comments or future agenda items. that was not specifically addressed, I think, other than a generally wanting us to talk about it. Okay, so moving now to the consent calendar. The consent calendar is a group of items which is generally treated together at one time. If there are members of the council or the public who are requesting to pull a matter from the consent calendar for detailed discussion, please raise your hand to be recognized to request to pull matters. We will have a chance to ask questions and comment on these matters briefly without pulling them if people so wish. So moving to the consent calendar, are there any brief questions? Seeing nobody requesting to pull, are there any brief questions to address on the consent calendar? Ms. Lawler.
Yes, thank you. On the minutes from the last meeting, I just had a correction under new business, item 1. It looks like Councilmember Mekachuk motioned and seconded the same item, so we might need to correct that for the record.
Thank you for catching that. I will fix that.
Thank you.
All right, any further questions or comments from council members on the consent calendar? Seeing none, I'll open the consent calendar to public comment. Oh, actually, let's go ahead and put that on hold for a moment. Mr. Kumar has returned and has about another minute and a half. So let's go ahead and recognize Mr. Kumar to finish his comments.
I'm sorry, something went wrong with my phone. What I've been asking is to have some sort of a traffic management on our street, because it's just becoming impossible to park. You know, cars are blocking driveways, blocking mailboxes, and their cars parked for 4 or 5 days. When you call the police, they have another 4 or 5 days. Meantime, you're having issues with parking. The biggest problem I have is my pool guy or my gardener or, you know, housekeeping, they don't have issues. They have to park across up the street, or I have to clear off my driveway for them to park. So I think it has become a nuisance, and we do anticipate future problems within the area, but I'm talking what we have right now. And I'm asking that we do something. My request is that I would not like to see any non-resident cars overnight on the street. To me, that is very, very, uncomfortable that you have a pickup truck with a cab open. They got shovels and all kinds of stuff. What the heck is going on? There are no street lights we have, and I don't care, whether we have street lights or not, but I want some safety, and I want to be able to park even during the daytime. So what I requested numerous times with letters to the city, with pictures saying this is a problem, this is a situation, we do something about it, and at least stop overnight parking on the street. By the way, that used to be how it was back in the 80s. There was no overnight parking. And the previous city manager asked me, do you have a copy of that? I said, no, I don't have. I mean, I don't keep things like that. But the neighbor did put a sticker on somebody else's car, don't park the car on the street. So anyway, that's what it is. This is not a new issue. It's gotten really bad now. It has been there 10, 11 years back. We had about 11 or 12 people on the street signed saying that, yes, we would like to see some sort of street parking management. And the matter was, so few people, they said, well, we work it out with the neighbors. And I said, put it in writing. Nobody wants to put it in writing. So whatever you want to do, I would like to see some result.
Right. Thank you for your comments, Mr. Kumar. They have been noted, and we will see about follow-up at appropriate time.
I would hope it's not going to be too long.
Okay, thank you. Coming back to the consent calendar now. I see Mr. Elahi has a hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to pull item 4, which is the accept revenues and expenditures report. I think it was pulled last time also. There was a couple of numbers. I think it's on page, I think it's page 30 of 214. There's an item where it says COPS grant revenue, we expect $100,000. It'd be nice if you can put a little note on it as to when we can expect that. It's part of the adopted budget, but I don't know when it's coming in. So if you guys have some idea as to when that's coming in, that'd be good. Also on the next item, which is the miscellaneous measure B and VRF, the 120,000. If you could have a footnote or something telling us when to expect that. Then the same page, there's a miscellaneous of 283,600, which I believe was broken down at the last meeting. I would suggest that we just break that up rather than just showing it as a miscellaneous 283,600. I mean, what is the specific numbers and what are they tied to, so that we can have a better idea rather than just tracking it as a miscellaneous, which is a hard thing to track. So if you could make that change, that'd be appreciated. And then the other question I had is on the LAIF investment accounts. I didn't see any interest income coming in at all this time. If you could explain why we have no income. I know that would probably be very small, but I would expect some interest income coming in from the funds we have.
Mr. Samaranos, do you have some comments in response?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Mayor Pro Temp, I will follow up on all those matters.
Great.
And
Thank you.
detail
Yeah.
the specific line items.
Yeah, if you can just make it specific and let us know if there's funds coming in, when you expect them. If you don't know, you can give us a range or give us something. And I'm not sure why we have no interest income. So thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other council member questions at the outset here on the consent items? I distracted myself a moment ago with Mr. Kumar's comments. Let me make sure that I have open public comment on this matter. Do we have any members of the public wishing to be heard on items 1 through 11 on the consent calendar? If so, please raise your hand to be recognized. Seeing none, let's return this now to council. If we have any council members wishing further discussion, please raise your hand to be recognized. If not, do we have a motion to adopt the consent calendar?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Elahi with a second from Councilmember Lawler. Councilmember Mekachek?
Aye.
Councilmember Turner?
Yes.
Councilmember Lawler?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elahi?
Yes.
And Mayor Luthold.
Yes.
That motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is public hearings. We have no unfinished business. Turning now to new business. The first item of new business is a discussion item regarding the city's future participation in the Cities Association of Santa Clara County and the restructuring of the Cities Association as a JPA and possible direction to the city representative regarding the same. Do we have a report on this matter?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to introduce the item. Councilmember Turner requested that we put this on the agenda for discussion, and I think that she will be taking the lead presentation and Q&A on this evening.
Great. Councilmember Turner.
Yes. Do we have Sergio on the line? I want to be sure that I don't violate the Brown Act here. So stop me if I'm saying too much. If you could, Sergio.
Happy to.
Okay. So let me talk about the Cities Association. I've been a representative of the Cities Association for about 4.5 years now. And there are 15 jurisdictions. You have Mountain View and Sunnyvale on the north, Los Gatos, Monte Sereno, San Jose, Santa Clara down south. And then we also have Morgan Hill and Gilroy. We also have Campbell. some of the issues that we talk about, some of the policies that we talk about, especially the last year, was on pandemic, racial justice, clean energy, RENA, and of course the SC roundtable. As you can see, some of the things that we talk about with Cal Cities, the Cities Association, we talk about it in our own council meetings. So some of it is a repetition. Now, what I want to concentrate on tonight is really our participation in the SC roundtable. The SC roundtable was the airport roundtable that we withdrew in June of 2020. And the FAA implemented this application called transportation system called NextGen. And there were nine cities in Santa Clara County and Santa Cruz. There were 3 cities that participated originally. In June of 2020, we withdrew from the SC roundtable. Okay, so we're no longer members of the SC roundtable. Well, since that time, the SC roundtable has been accumulating a lot of expenses. And so since they're a part of the cities association, the city association said that all the cities may have to pay for the expenses of the roundtable. And of course, at that point, I said, no, I will not take this to the Monte Sereno Council. We're not going to pay for the SC roundtable because we're not members. Okay, so having said that, in August of 2020, Cities Association voted to become a JPA. And here's where I need Sergio to talk about, what are the benefits of a JPA versus a 501(c)(3) or 501(c)(4). Sergio, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Yeah, so I think the real question being presented here is, does the city want to join the Cities Association in its restructured JPA form? With respect to, in terms of the mission, in my discussion.
Sergio, you need to speak up.
In my discussions with Councilmember Turner, I understand that generally, the mission of the 2 organizations will remain the same. They'll basically do more or less the same thing. Now, the one issue is, typically with respect to addressing sort of the assets and liabilities, under a 501(c)(4).
I can barely hear you.
Okay, let me try. Can you hear me now? Is that any better? Okay.
Yes.
So typically, the big question is, does the city want to rejoin and continue being part of the cities association in the form of a joint powers association? That's going to require approval of a city contract, so it doesn't really happen as a matter of course. And that creates a new separate legal entity with whatever powers and abilities that are shared by the common members that the contract that forms the JPA provides. Typically, as I understand it, basically the cities association is going to do more or less the same thing. I haven't seen a draft of the JPA agreement, so I can't really comment on at this point, and I don't even know if a draft exists. I can't really comment as to whether or not it'd be a significant expansion, but we do know, at least with respect to a JPA, that typically, the members of a JPA are often liable for the torts that are committed by the JPA, and typically they can be required to contribute. Additionally, if the JPA has any sort of employees, the members can potentially be on the hook for any sort of shortfall, for filling any shortfall in a CalPERS contribution. So if you have accrued unfunded, liabilities, the employees can look to the members to fulfill those obligations if the JPA doesn't have sufficient assets. That was a recent change in state law to protect the employees of JPAs who are still public employees. So really, in terms of what the function of the association is, it doesn't, I think Councilmember Turner can comment on that as to whether there's going to be a big change in sort of, what the association does. But in terms of, whether or not it makes sense for the city to continue participating, there may be some additional liabilities that the city's taking on. And, you should consider that in light of sort of what you're getting out of this association.
Okay, so thank you. So let me add a little bit to it and then stop me if I'm saying too much. Cal City, the Cities Association and the roundtable have been having some talk back and forth about how the bills are going to be paid. And as a result of that, it became a little bit ugly, right? And so chances are what's happening here is that if they continue in this mode, we're going to be paying legal expenses on both sides because we're basically the same organization. So we will be paying the lawyers for Cities Association and the lawyer for the SC Roundtable. So this will be agendized, hopefully, November 11th with the Cities Association. Some of the cities have gone back to their city councils to see if they want to remain or will pull out. So what I want to do tonight is to get an idea from all of you as to what your thoughts are around this. Do we remain part of the Cities Association in the event that the bills get really high on both sides? It's no win for us because we have two organizations, part of the same group. So either way, we're going to pay one or the other, or probably even both. So, Sergio, I don't know if we need to take a vote on this, or we just get, a nod from council members. What is your suggestion?
Well, to the extent you're looking for sort of direction to, if the council wants to provide direction for, to withdraw, that, I think that it makes sense to have a vote. But if there's just sort of general direction provided to you as to what to say on behalf of the city, at the November 11th meeting, I think, they can just provide direction and we can see if there's consensus.
Okay.
Okay.
So I hand it back to you, Mayor.
Great. Well, it is a discussion item, and so let's discuss. Let's go ahead, actually, before we get further into it and clear the public comment portion of this. If we have any members of the public wishing to speak on this issue, please raise your hand to be recognized, and we will take care of the public comment side. Seeing none, I'll close public comment and bring this back now to council member discussion and then decision about whether or not this is something to vote on or simply offer guidance. So, Mr. Elahi.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess you always have to think about whenever it comes to paying the bills. But if you approach things from that perspective, it's like approaching, something from the behind, and we don't really know what's in front of it. If the joint JPA is going to provide benefits throughout this to the city on different things, even maybe on Reno or something else, or if they're going to provide some other benefits, then we need to know that, and I don't have an understanding of that yet. So we need to figure that out, because in some ways, like we are on the JPA for the Silicon Valley Clean Energy, and we have one vote just like everybody else, but we pay we're the smallest entity in that unit. So even on the JPA, we may be paying the bills, but we might be only paying 1/50th of whatever of the total bill that somebody else is paying. And the question is, if you're getting the same benefit as the other cities, then that 1/50th may be worth paying. So we really need to get the entire picture somehow. And I know Council Member Turner has been doing it for 8 years, so she has a very good idea what's going on, but and has a decent picture. But I think the city needs to get that picture also. All of us need to get that picture, figure out what's going on with the entire city's association. So I don't know how you could provide that to us, Councilmember Turner, or if you can figure out, or once you meet on November 11th, they give us a proposal as to how each city is going to participate and what is going to fall on our shoulders. I think we'll be in a better position to figure out what are they going to deliver and what is it costing us.
Okay, so let me respond a little bit to that. Los Altos Hills and Monte Sereno are the two smallest cities, right? So every time we take a vote, for example, you're going to pay compared to other cities. For example, we pay $3,500 a year. Now you say it's not a lot, but it's $1 per resident. If we look at the larger cities, they pay 5 cents a resident. So I asked them, well, why can't we have a lower rate, 5 cents a resident, and everybody take it on to be equal? And they say, well, let's go ahead and vote. And of course, we're the smallest city, we never win, right? And so with the round table, when we dropped out, what happened is the fees then got distributed to the other cities. So if the other cities opt to drop out, then we will have to handle all the cost of the other cities as well. And that's also one of the concerns of the cities who are thinking about dropping out. I can't name them because it wouldn't be good for me to identify who they are, but they're the smaller cities compared to San Jose or Milpitas, right? And so therefore our bills are always larger, comparatively speaking, than the larger cities. So that's one aspect.
No, I understand that. What I wanted to know, get an appreciation is what does that do for us? What's the benefit of joining it? Yeah, what's the benefit of joining it? Is there a plus side at all, or is it all just paying the bills? Is the city association do anything for it? Yeah, being part of the JPA, will it provide us any benefits at all?
Oh, today the benefits are, I get the news from them on the pandemic, right? They call in Evan Lowe to come in, they call in Mike Wasserman, but we can call them in as well, okay. Right? The other one is the clean energy. I mean, you know who they are, you're intimately familiar. We can call them in as well. So like I said, there's duplication. RENA, we either say oppose or oppose unless amended, or we join them. And many times we have to convince cities association to oppose outright rather than oppose unless amended. So those are some of the challenges that we've had. And many times the smaller cities are not aligned with the larger cities on many things, but we never win because the vote is always 9-3 or 9-4. So those are some of the objections. And I just wanted to bring it up. I wanted to get an idea, because if they're going to talk about it and some cities will say, we're not going to join, I want the ability to say, well, let's take a look at this because we may or may not join.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. Let's have them tell us what is the benefit of us joining them, and then we can whether the cost justifies it or not. So that's a good approach. Thank you.
Yeah. So expanding. Let's go ahead and hear from Ms. Lawler, and then I have some comments as well. Go ahead, Ms. Lawler.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just reiterating. So it's really a regional advocacy group in which small cities have very little influence. So we're paying into something that we're not really getting the benefit of. That's correct, right? Just confirming, yeah.
Okay, I guess, okay, Mr. Mekachek, yeah.
I wasn't going to comment, but I think what I heard was there are more larger cities than smaller cities, and the smaller cities are aligned, but we're out, even though we have a 1-for-1 vote, we still get outnumbered large city opinion versus small city opinion. And I think that we need to have got an opinion, it's got to have some basis that obviously resonates with the larger cities. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't. But I'm not convinced that means let's take our marbles and go home.
Yeah, so actually, I think that's a good point as well. Staying at having the seat at the table, even if we're not being heard, is a seat at the table, and it is there as a co-equal. It's no fun to be in the minority on the votes all the time if it turns out that small city business is different. I had one idea expanding on what Mr. Elahi said that you, Ms. Turner, might be able to take back to them. And that is, I mean, it doesn't bother me that we pay $1 per citizen to participate, because it would be kind of silly to pay 5 cents per citizen and show up there for our $50 or whatever that would work out to be, and then have that equal seat at the table for that. But I think that, again, and this is a message maybe to take to both the small cities and the big cities and see if this resonates. It's one thing to be a member and pay a membership fee to be there, and to pay our $3,500 doesn't seem problematic, but we don't want to take on that disproportionate liability if the JPA is incurring legal fees or incurring CalPERS or these kinds of things. That kind of liability for additional costs that they run up would need to be shared pro rata amongst people on the basis of per citizen at the 5 cents number, or 7 cents if it needs to be that. So maybe that's something that you could take back to them that might make sense, that there's membership and then there's liability and contribution to things like legal funds above and beyond membership that really has to be based on citizenship. That's my thinking on that. Seems to make sense to me. Whether they'll listen to you or not, who knows? But they should certainly understand that there's a difference between those two things. Ms. Lauder, did you have your hand up still? No. Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
Sergio, can I say any more, or will I be violating the Brown Act if I say anything about closed session stuff?
I don't think you necessarily need to get into that.
Okay.
So I think what I'm hearing here is this is informational. I don't think we're hearing we don't want to participate. I think we're hearing a keep lobbying for common sense and see what this means to us before we can make a decision on this. But I think there was some good input today. Your thoughts, Ms. Turner?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, do you feel you have enough information to go forward?
I'll try.
All
I'll
right.
try my best.
And appreciate all of the hard work you do on. I know this is a big assignment on that one. Okay, so I guess that now brings us to the end of that as an informational item. The next is to adjourn to closed session. Conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation. This is regarding 418 Holdings versus the City of Monte Sereno, Santa Clara County Superior Court case 20 CV 370686, and we are convening under Government Code Section 54956.9 sub D sub 1. So if everyone will go to the closed session link that our city attorney has sent us, or will be sending us shortly if we can't get in on that one. We'll see you all over there, and then we'll come back and close out this meeting as soon as we finish that. So see you all over there.
I don't think we have a particularly good argument that we should cover it, or that they should cover it because it's a land use matter.
Steve,
There's-
you're unmuted.
right. Looks like we're making our way back.
We have a quorum.
Yeah, all right, great. So reconvening back to open session. We have not yet opened this for public comment on the closed session matter. So I will now open this to public comment. If we have any members of the public wishing to comment on the matter that was that is involved in the closed session, please raise your hand to be heard. Seeing none, we will close public comment and report back from the closed session. Nothing to report, no action taken. And that closes that matter out. Now we are going to move to committee and commission reports. Any council members have committee and commission reports?
I don't.
Seeing no council member hands coming up. Now we move to council member comments. I know council member Elahi had one.
Yeah, there was a letter sent by Mr. Lon Allen regarding discussing the initiative that's been put on the ballot now for to straighten out the inequities caused by SB 9 and SB 10 as far as requiring cities to build, allowing individuals to come into the city and require any plot to be split up into 3 or 4 different lots, with the cities having no say-so about it. And that initiative says that that right to zone or control the land use really should belong to the cities. So I think we need to put that up for agenda for discussion. But more than that, I think we need to probably have a full-blown hearing to invite the citizens of Monte Sereno to come and participate. Have somebody come in and explain what those SB 9s and SB 10s are going to do to Monte Sereno. And maybe if Los Gatos or Saratoga or other close by cities are interested, and have a full-blown educational seminar on that subject. And then have the city discuss it and decide whether you want to support the initiative or not support the initiative.
So I hear you about bringing that up, and former Mayor Allen pushing us on that. I think we had some discussion with Mr. Rudin last time, and if he could re-clarify for us the details about cities and city councils and taking positions on initiatives versus are we able to hold an educational forum related to the matter that's the initiative without taking a side? And then could you educate us a little about that, or should we bring this back as an item where you educate us further?
We can do both. I can just sort of say that basically state law and constitutional principles and court decisions basically say the city can't use public resources for the purposes of advocacy with respect to any ballot measure, whether that's local or statewide. That being said, the city can have an informational item where the city council is presented with information from city staff about how the initiative might impact the city. That is perfectly fine as long as the information that's presented at the council meeting is truthful and impartial with respect to the measure, and that the city doesn't take any sort of further position on advocacy. Now, the city can take a position, either endorsing or opposing the measure. So the council can adopt a resolution taking a position. But beyond that, you can't really do much in the way of expending public resources, including staff time. So basically, you can have a discussion about the impacts that the measure might have on the city if it were to pass or not pass, and take a position, and that's really about it. But having some sort of recruitment or encouraging citizens to participate or to sign the ballot measure, that may be taking a step too far.
Yeah, I think we're okay on that. I think all we need to do is let the citizens know what's going on and present them all sides of the issue, because it is going to impact them drastically once it goes into effect. Because you see your neighbor's plot split into 4 different lots, at least they should know about that that's coming. So I would request Mr. Leonardo to look into it to see how we could set up some kind of a proper educational seminar, informational seminar, and we can invite both sides of the issue to come and make the presentation so the citizens have a chance to look at everything.
And with respect to both sides, at this point, I'm only aware that there's a ballot proponent. So it wouldn't really necessarily be possible to invite an opposing side. Additionally, I do have some concerns about inviting, proponents or opponents of a ballot measure to speak. I really think that these types of agenda items should be focused basically, based on, city staff's analysis of the impact on the city. So
The city staff needs to learn from somebody. And that the whole purpose of the presentation is so that we can learn. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the proponent whose name is on the ballot. It could be people who know enough about it that can talk about it.
Sure. As long as the information presented is impartial. And
yeah, absolutely. That's what we're looking at. That's what we're looking at.
I guess I mean, I understand the interest in the initiative, certainly, and in educating ourselves about the initiative. And I certainly have personal feelings about land use and these things. But at the same time, in terms of city resources, number one, I'm concerned we don't want to use city resources incorrectly, as Mr. Rudin points out, to potentially be accused of advocating for something. We're being watched very closely by organizations that are pro-housing. And so if we were to misstep and appear to be anti-housing, they would be all over us as they have been before. I would be concerned about that. But more importantly, I'm concerned about our city resources being used properly for objective standards for January 1st implementation of this item. We had Mr. Cortese speak to the West Valley mayors and managers, and this is kind of in the nature of reporting. And Mr. Leonardis has his hand up and he's going to be able to speak to some of that issue as well. But it seemed to me when Mr. Cortese was speaking about this that he didn't understand his own bill that he had endorsed with SB 9. He believed that objective standards with height and style and slopes and things like that were going to be able to preclude development in large swaths of cities. Which is exactly opposite. Rowena is shaking her head. She's read the same law I have. The law is very, very clear that none of those things are allowable. But Senator Cortese's office said that the legislative analysts with the state could be made available to us to look into the objective standards issue, and that he would be among the first to correct it if the law was written wrongly and was having negative effects about fires and so on and so forth. Right. And so obviously we were lied to by a politician, but that's never happened before. But we have objective standards. We have a January 1st deadline. This initiative, even if it qualifies, isn't going to be happening until November a year from now. So this is, we need to get our objective standards and use our staff time on doing what we can do. There are going to be model languages from the Cities Association, from other similarly situated cities, Campbell, Los Altos. We're all working on coming up with objective standards that will withstand scrutiny and or push the limits. And we're going to have to make those choices. But we want to bring a laundry list of those objective standards before the council, and then the council can decide, do we push the limits with our objective standards, or do we do them pretty mainstream? Where do we go with that? And we've got about 2 council meetings left before January 1st implementation. So they've put us in a terrible position where we now may have to rush our objective standards, or January 1st, we may have no objective standards and somebody could be in on January 2nd with an SB 9 plan. So I'd say those are my concerns here. Initiative comes later. Objective standards are all hands on deck at the moment. Let me call on Mr. Leonardis since he had his hand up first and comment on this.
Thank you, Mayor. You took the words right out of what staff has been thinking about, and we do plan on bringing the objective standards along with the SB 9 urgency ordinance forward. Hopefully, it must happen by the first week of December, the first meeting of December, so we can get all that done by January 1st. And I know Ms. Perkins is working on this diligently. We plan on, of course, working with Mr. Rudin on this, and that is coming up. It's unclear whether it has to go to Site and Arc first. I think that's one thing we have to look into. But we are well aware of the time frame and the need to get that done, as well as what was mentioned about, we did receive a model ordinance from Campbell. And then we, what you mentioned about rolling in the objective standards into this. And all that we will be feverishly working on this for the next couple weeks to get this done.
Thanks. And also I would point out, and obviously coordinate with Mr. Rudin on this, but if it ends up that we have to have another special meeting in December in order to make this okay for staff, we don't want you guys to burn out on this. We'll do what we have to do. We can, we may need to extend our emergency authorization one more time, but if we can do these meetings remotely, doesn't matter where people are on their vacations, if we can pull a quorum together, we can do this as late as we're legally allowed to do it for the urgency ordinances to get through in time. If we need second meetings, second readings, these kinds of things. So please coordinate closely with Mr. Rudin and staff, and we'll make ourselves available as needed to make sure that the city doesn't get blindsided by this.
We will certainly do so.
Yeah, the initiative we have some time on, so we don't have to do the initiative between now and December, because that's going to be on the November ballot next year. So we have time on it to do our educational programs next year on those.
All right, good. Okay, other council member comments, or if it rolls to a future agenda item, feel free to cross over to that. See, Mr. Mekachuk.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned Senator Cortese, because I had a 45-minute one-on-one with Dave today, and I raised SB 9 and SB 10. And I think he said that he said the same thing to me that he said to the West Valley mayors. So you're closer to it than me. But I did talk to him about the arena allocation, and he did say that he would write a letter talking about the fire situation, and so he offered to do that, and I said I was going to speak to council but come back, and I don't know if that would be helpful or not. He said he'd write it to the HUD and ABAG. So that's a question for council.
Yeah, I would just chime in on that. I mean, he certainly should get on the phone with them and tell them. But on the other hand, we've dealt with the arena appeal and with ABAG, and they have said that the state tied their hands. They have absolutely no discretion whatsoever, including in Paradise, because the state tied their hands. So again, I mean, it's disgusting. Sorry to use that word. But Mr. Cortese and Mr. Weiner and those folks in Sacramento stuck their heads in the sand and were sold a bill of goods by the developers and YIMBYs and feel-good people. And they didn't read their own bills, and they didn't think about the danger that they are putting our communities in. I don't care about, I mean, you want to talk about doubling our density in Monte Sereno over the will of everyone who lives here, fine, do it in the flatlands, but don't do it on streets that have mirrors on the corners on the one-lane roads in our hillsides, which they did, and with no ability to block a lot split in those areas.
So
I mean, these guys, he created the problem, and you need to let him know he created the problem. He needs to fix it. If he thinks a letter to ABAG helps, send the letter to ABAG, publish it in the Mercury News, and get on the horn to his friend Newsom. And they need to fix this, because they're going to kill people. I mean, they're putting human beings at risk with their stupid, no consideration bills. And I mean, ABAG expressed that frustration. Ms. Turner and Ms. Lawler were there listening in. And after Monte Sereno spoke on the appeal, we really broke through to them. And they said, we're sorry, we think this is stupid. Your appeal is denied anyway, because our hands are tied. I mean, they expressed the frustration that they had, that they couldn't help anyone. Not that they really wanted to, because they just have to spread the numbers around. But they said Sacramento tied their hands. So Mr. Cortese, let him know that he's got to fix this.
Okay. My second matter is that City Manager Leonardis and I met with the representative from Valley Water today at the Annex building, and we walked through what we're planning on building there. And there may be an opportunity to get some funding from them. And I know that Mayor Pro Tem Elahi and I are trying to work on the funding. I just want to give you an update. And then we've also got the 18,000 from Silicon Valley Clean Energy, but I'd like to double or triple that. So we're still working on that. We'll come back to council with a full report. I just didn't want you to think that nothing was going on there. Those are my couple of comments.
Yeah, good job, Brian. Keep it up.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Anyone else? Council member comments and or future agenda items rolled together with them? Seeing none, let's go ahead and move on to our city manager report if Mr. Leonardis has other matters that he wants to talk about.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one item this evening. We have a meeting next Tuesday. It will be a Zoom meeting. It will be open, of course, to the entire council as well as the entire community about, hosted by the town of Los Gatos, about the qualities that are being sought in the next chief of police for the Los Gatos Monte Sereno Police Department. I will be sending out a message regarding the Zoom login information to the community. We will post it on Nextdoor as well as on our news feed and our e-blast. And we'll be sending you all the information as well. So next Tuesday at 6:30 p.m., November 9th, is the date that was selected. Many of you on council had conflicts on the 10th and the 11th. So the 9th was the date that was selected. One other item I wanted to mention, Councilmember Lawler mentioned the noise ordinance last time and sending out a communication to the public about the hours that the public is allowed to do construction on their houses and other things, yard work and et cetera, and I am working on constructing that message for the community. So I will be sending that out as well. The policy is quite liberal. It is from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. And then there is weekend activities which are allowed as well. So it is, of course, the time of the year where we're starting to get rain, and I hope that, and it gets darker earlier, so perhaps the noise might be going down. But it's not a bad idea just to let the community know of the hours that we have, so they could take that into consideration when they are doing their projects, especially during the holiday season. And that's all I have to report. Thank you.
City Manager Leonardis, is that information given to the people when they apply for a permit as to what the working hours are?
Yes, I believe there is a cover sheet.
Okay.
When they take out their permits, they are made aware of the ordinances, but I will double check that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and my experience is that there has been a cover sheet and it's made very, very clear what the working hours are and that people are supposed to respect those. And of course, then what we were hearing, I think we got the feedback that there's a lot of cheating and people's apologizing and promising they'll never do it again, and then it happens again. So there's all we can do probably is really keep repeating this and listen to our citizens' complaints when they have them. So coming back to this, I guess not really a future agenda item, but it kind of relates to Mr. Kumar's public comment today. which is he brought up the issue of parking enforcement and parking policies and all of that. We tabled that issue recently, and yet we do have the possibility that a neighborhood could try to get permit parking in their neighborhood. We just don't have a procedure for it really, because we chose not to spend time and energy on that. But if the city could reflect that to Mr. Kumar, that there is such a possibility, and maybe even point to the sample as a way that we didn't do, as a way that he might want to try to organize his neighbors if that's something that he really wants to get attention for. Obviously, it's not a huge priority. It had crossed my mind recently when I was thinking about a neighborhood I know of where they don't allow overnight parking on the street. I don't think that's something that's very appropriate for Monte Sereno. In many of our neighborhoods, and there certainly are neighborhoods where it could be considered, but I don't think that necessarily fits with the rural character and leaving people alone that much of Monte Sereno seems to want. So, Mr. Leonardis, you've got your hand up on that.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We have had extensive discussions with Mr. Kumar, and I did mention to him because of the way council voted to table last time the issue, that he could come in and speak directly to the council and share his views as he did this evening. He is aware that he can call the police non-emergency number if cars are parked there for more than 72 hours. They are public streets. We did also speak with him about there is a permit parking jurisdiction on Valley Oak Drive, although Mr. Rudin and Jessica Kahn, city engineer, were in conversations. I'm not sure, we can't find much record of how that came about or any of how it's enforced other than there's signs and people obey that. We don't issue any stickers for cars or charge them anything or any of those formalities. I think about a year ago, it was brought forth the idea of trying to set up some kind of a controlled parking in that neighborhood. Ms. Khan brought that forward. I believe it was to council, or at least to the parking commission, or excuse me, the Better Streets Commission. And I believe that there was not a 60% or greater vote of the residents to bring that forward. There was a very low desire on the street to pursue it any further. So the issue is relatively isolated to Mr. Kumar, and it being his frustration over a great deal of time. And I empathize with his position, but we'd be looking for further direction and further expertise from City Attorney Rudin and Engineer Khan on how to move forward with anything should council wish to do anything.
Well, it sounds like he does need to get his neighborhood behind him if he wants to convince us that the neighborhood wants it. So he needs to get his grassroots organizing up to speed if he wants to really make a change, it seems. So if you'll just keep working with him on that and keep his frustration level down, that we're not trying to get in the way of this, but there are procedures and he really does have to have a consensus and what the rules would be for him.
Is the situation as bad as he describes it on the city? Have you had a chance to look at it, or has Engineer Khan had a chance to look at the street itself?
Just the photographs that he has sent. I have received other calls from residents in that cul-de-sac about, PG&E work a year ago and when would the work be done and when would the road be repaved. But Mr. Kumar is the only individual who has addressed concerns about parking on his street and the issues that he described this evening.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mekachek.
I would say that his observations and comments are somewhat exaggerated and they're not shared in the community here. Be very careful with what I say.
I think we're veering into discussion of an unagendized item. So these types of, council member comments, future agenda items, they're really not intended to be a place for the council to substantively discuss positions rather than just,
I believe we were talking about whether it merits putting it on a future agenda item.
Yeah, so my suggestion is if staff can continue to deal with this, great. If it needs to be an agenda item, then bring it to us when the time comes, but it's already cycled through a few times. Councilmember Turner.
Yes, I was going to move to future agenda items, if that's
Yep.
okay.
Yep, we're there. What do you have in mind?
Okay, about a month ago, a month ago, I talked to council about getting C-Click fixed and working with Michelle Radcliffe as the project manager. So I wanted to check to see if we needed to actually vote on it or it's something that's done. And the reason I'm asking is because I found some ways in which we can get the QR code with very little effort and to move this program faster. So I'd like to put that on the agenda to make, if we need to vote on whether Michelle is going to be the project manager or not. Because I got the impression she was, but I'm not sure now because I haven't seen any movements.
Yeah, Mr. Leonardis.
Thank you, Mayor. Addressing Ms. Turner's questions. So we have been working with C-Click Fix to add Michelle Radcliffe. We would have to increase our user license and that costs additional funds. So that's one issue. I have no problem managing C-Click Fix in its current configuration with the user licenses that we have. And we did research the QR code, and that is something that we can add with a little bit of IT help. So we were working on doing that at the staff level. So I would recommend that we would continue on the path that we have been with C-Click Fix, currently with me being in charge, and then adding the QR code. And I'm hesitant to add additional user licenses because quite honestly, there just has not been a lot of volume coming through C-Click Fix. We probably received one C-Click Fix request in the last 6 weeks. We had the initial 7 or 8, and several of those, of course, were sent in by council members. But we have not had much activity on C-Click Fix. We still get several requests through our website and for assistance on a whole myriad of topics. But when it comes to the C-Click Fix, the volume has been very light. So.
Okay, see, I don't want to get into a discussion about this because then Sergio will say we can't discuss it. So that's why I want to put this in a future agenda item. Thank you.
Yeah, so I agree. I mean, I think let's bring this in as a future agenda item so we can talk about how much money is involved and talk about whether the lack of ramp up is because of lack of marketing and attention, or whether it's because lack of citizen interest and so forth. So yeah, let's bring this on. If Mr. Leonardis, if you can work with me and Ms. Radcliffe to find an agenda where we're not overwhelmed with other things. But to bring this back pretty quickly so that we can discuss it formally.
Yes, we will do that.
All right, good. Other future agenda items. Okay, seeing everybody pausing, I'll take this opportunity to close out the meeting before anybody thinks of anything else. So on that note, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for your staying late and your input tonight. Thank you to staff for all your help today.
Yeah, thank you and good night, guys.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.